Hello everybody, I'm Laura.
And I'm Shanae.
And we are
the Story Seekers. Today we have an episode about the Skinwalkers.
Very excited to get into this one.
Very creepy.
This I knew nothing about, so hopefully you guys enjoy. As usual, if you have any comments or if you know anything, if you have any stories, please feel free to comment and we'll look over them as soon as we can.
Yes. I know a little bit about Skinwalkers. That's why I wanted you to do the research for this one.
Yeah, it was definitely
And I wrote the story. But I did write the story a while ago.
Okay.
Like a couple of months ago. And on my way here, I realized, one, I don't know what the story's about anymore. And two, I also realized I don't even know if I finished the story.
We will see.
So I might wing it halfway and finish my own story right here. We'll have to see. I was thinking, why didn't I read it today? I had so much time. Why didn't I just read it through? So I'm going to be telling myself a story as I will be telling everyone else's story.
Revisit it. It'll be nice. Okay, to get things started, we thought we would go into a tarot.
Yes.
We've not done one for a while.
Spread them out on the table. I think you can have the honor of picking this one.
Okay. Is this going to be one for me?
I think for the podcast.
For the podcast, yeah. Let's have a look. Okay, so I have the moon. Basically, it's a really nice Japanese style drawing or painting of a girl crossing over a river looking up at the moon. She has very long hair, kind of siren-y, and all of the animals are looking towards her, which is really nice.
She kind of reminds me of the moon lady in Vietnamese and as mythology.
Yeah.
Come on.
I've been watching,
Google.
Not been watching recently, but she reminds me of an anime I really enjoyed on Netflix, and it's all about like a girl who's basically like she's the apothecary in Japan. And she kind of sees all of the comings and goings in the like of the emperors and what happens and their wives, and she's kind of like she just basically sees everything that happens, and she's really helpful. And it does come with a disclaimer at the start of the show, like these episodes are not based on any factual evidence, but I can imagine that would have been a really cool job to have, because you're really respected, you're the poison taster, and you kind of are seeing everything unfold, all of the strange things that happen during that time as well. So I reckon that's why they put that there, because people speculate who the girl was. It's really cool. But yeah, this picture.
Interesting job, but also very dangerous job being a taster.
Yeah.
Okay. The moon is a major arcana card representing intuition, subconscious fears, illusion, and uncertainty. It signifies a time when things are not as they appear, urging you to look beneath the surface, trust your inner voice, and confront hidden anxieties or secrets. It often highlights emotional confusion, deep reflection, and misery.
Oh no! I mean, all of those you can tie to our theme, but
honestly, that it kind of feels like what I feel like today.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
I don't know.
Emotionally confused, anxious.
Well, I was saying to Laura when I have an off day on Mondays, so I was just kind of hanging around at my house, and I was listening to the Hunger Games, the audiobooks for the first time. Which is very exciting. But that just kind of took over my day, so I was just drifting around the house, feeling, I don't know, sorry for myself, a little lost, like picking up a hobby, because I have many hobbies, so picking up a hobby, starting it, setting it down, and then moving on to the next, and then doing the same thing.
You don't feel like you're fully focused in on something, and that's definitely way out of your character as well. Once you sit down, you're like, I'm invested in this for the day or for a few hours.
I think it's hormones too. I think I'm just kind of getting to the point where I'm gonna be on my time, like in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So energy just kind of starts dropping
feel you
off, and creativity starts. Isn't there a thing here about creativity? No. It signifies a time when things are not as they appear.
Yeah.
So Laura, I feel like you kind of picked my card there.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I should pick yours.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right, let me pick yours. I'm gonna keep it in mind. Were you thinking about me when you
No.
think about me?
Channel
Laura's
me.
card. Ace of Wands.
Sorry?
Ace of Wands.
Is it bad luck to read your own tarot?
No, of course not.
Okay. I'm glad you said that because I'm like, oh. Okay, the Ace of Wands represents a powerful, energetic spark, symbolizing new beginnings, inspiration, and creative passion. Okay.
There's a paintbrush on this one.
That's nice.
Yeah, so you need to be creative, Laura.
It signals the start of a passionate venture, career opportunity, or exciting, fresh romance. I'm married. This card urges you to take bold action, seize opportunities, and trust your gut to spark new, exciting adventures. Okay?
Sounds overall very positive.
Creative, yeah, lots of positivity.
Okay, good. Are you feeling positive?
I am actually.
Yin and yang here.
Yeah, I feel like for the first time in ages, the past few weeks, it's something really lame, but just getting back to the gym has really, like, I know we mentioned it last time, but we've had like so many disturbances, like obviously going away and then being back and then the floods and then having a job and then losing a job and then having my new job. I'm proud he's like not 100% happy about his but recently it feels like a bit more chilled.
Reality's coming back. Things are getting back to
just a bit more of a routine than kind of just waiting around, which is nice. So yeah, probably. I think that all of that makes me feel a bit more creative and a bit more like grounded.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry, yours wasn't.
It's okay. You can't. You know, us as women, I feel like we have our ebbs and flows.
Yep, 100%.
So I mean, like the tarot said, and I'm claiming that tarot because I very much related to it.
Yeah.
Like it says, just take some time for reflection. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll be fine in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
When my body sheds, an organ.
Yeah.
Speaking about shedding organs.
Ooh.
We're talking about skinwalkers today.
We are. Yeah. Now, before I get into the history, I do want to say that I've focused on specifically where it originates from. And probably skinwalkers have lots of different variations in like different cultures. Maybe they're called different things, but I really wanted to look into where it came from because there is a lot of like crap on the internet.
A lot.
Like people like just very much like the cheesy kind of show. I don't know, like not ghost shows, but like very supernatural shows.
Yes.
People are like, oh my god, my cat's spine, it's like it's getting longer, it must be a shapeshifter. I'm like, no.
But there's a difference between shapeshifters
and skin,
and skinwalkers, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
I knew that. That's why I was interested for you to do the research.
Yeah. So I've definitely.
So I'm very curious I'm definitely very curious to see what you end up telling me. Do you want to do the story first or the history first?
Do the story first.
Do the story first. The story that might not be complete. I lived with my Navajo aunt when I was 13, and I think I encountered something I wasn't supposed to talk about.
Oh.
When I was 13 years old, my parents finally decided to divorce. Honestly, they had been fighting for as long as I could remember, but when it started getting ugly, my mom suggested I go stay with her sister, my aunt, until things were sorted out. She thought it would give me a more stable place to live for a while. My mom is Dene, Navajo, and my dad is from Arizona. But here's the thing, my mom never really talked about growing up on the reservation. I didn't know much about the Navajo traditions or beliefs, just scattered bits and pieces. My aunt, on the other hand, never left. She still lived in the same house their parents had owned, tucked out near the Chuska Mountains. She was in her 50s when I moved in with her. I had vague memories of her from when I was younger, how she'd tell me stories in a low, serious voice, and how she made the most amazing fried bread. When I arrived at my aunt's house, she was waiting for us on the porch. I remember the sun was scorching and was baking the dirt road, so we hurried into the shade. The house itself was small, built of sandstone and timber with a tin roof. Out back, there was a water tank, an old clothesline, and a small traditional hogan. And further beyond that, a line of low hills where clusters of pinyon and juniper trees grew, thick enough to cast real shadows. To me, it felt like the edge of the world. The land stretched wide and open, nothing but desert, brush, and red rock in front of the house, but behind it the trees gathered in a way that made the horizon feel closer, more enclosed. I didn't know it then, but those woods would become a part of the property I avoided the most. Inside the house smelled faintly of wood smoke and sage. My mom spent the day with us, and then in the late afternoon she gave me a hug and told me that it wouldn't be for too long. Then she drove off, and just like that, it was only me and my aunt. That first night was also the first night that I heard the scratches. As I was lying in the unfamiliar bed, I was having a hard time falling asleep. The house was so quiet that it felt loud in my head, and every creak or little sound made me jump. I remember thinking that I was just freaking myself out and that I had to calm down. So when I started hearing scratches at the window, I was sure that I was just imagining it, but it kept scratching in an irregular pattern. I wanted to know what it was, but I was too scared to even move. Eventually, I must have drifted into a deep sleep, because the next thing I remember is waking up to the smell of food. When I sat down at the kitchen table the next morning, my aunt was already at the stove, flipping fry bread and moving quietly around the kitchen. Still half asleep, I asked her if there was a tree or something outside my window, because I thought I'd heard scratching during the night. She froze, just for a second, but long enough for me to notice. Then she slowly turned around, her face suddenly serious. "Rule number 1, she said. You help out with the chores, cleaning up after yourself, washing dishes, that kind of thing. Rule number 2, you can play outside, you can run around, but don't go past the woodland line. And you make sure you're back before the sun goes down." She pauses before the last one. Her eyes didn't leave mine. Rule number 3, and this one's the most important. If you hear anything outside the house at night, anything, you ignore it. You don't talk about it, you don't answer it, and you never, ever open the door after dark, not even if it sounds like me or your mom. You go straight to your room and stay there. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but shut it quickly when she gave me that stern look. Yeah, you know the one. Every night, I'd hear that same scratching at my window, and every night I remembered my aunt's rules. During the day, I would help around the house, and then once the sun was low in the afternoons, I would go play outside. I met a boy around my age who lived nearby, and we became fast friends. Since his mom had just had a baby, she didn't want us making noise at his place, so we always played out behind my aunt's house. One late afternoon, we decided to build a fort, using some dead branches that had fallen from the trees. We were so caught up with our work that I didn't even notice the porch light had flicked on. We were almost finished with the roof of our hut when we both heard it. A rustling, not too deep into the tree line, but close enough to stop us cold. Our heads snapped in the same direction at the same time. Then we looked at each other, wide-eyed. Without a word, we started making our way to the house. Instinctively, I tried to bolt, but my friend grabbed my arm firmly. He whispered, dead serious, "Don't run. Walk, and don't look back." He went up the steps first and went inside the back door. I followed, but I made a mistake. A mistake I wish I hadn't. I looked back. The sun had almost completely gone down, and the tree line was swallowed in shadows. But I swear I saw something standing there, a huge, dog-shaped figure, and the eyes were glowing. That night, after my friend's dad picked him up and dinner was cleaned away, the house went quiet. My aunt went to bed, and I stayed in the living room, curled up on the old brown sofa, watching TV before I had to turn in. That's when I heard it, a knock on the door. The sound froze me in place. My stomach dropped instantly, and my skin prickled all over. I didn't know if I should wake my aunt. I was terrified of getting in trouble if it turned out to be nothing, so I just sat there, clutching the sofa pillow, trying not to breathe too loud. Then I heard my mom's voice, calling my name. My mom wasn't supposed to visit until next week. She lived hours away, so why would she be here now, in the middle of the night? I stood slowly, my legs trembling, but something about the voice wasn't right. It was too flat, too hollow, like someone trying to wear her voice instead of actually being her. When I didn't answer, the knocking stopped. For a second, I thought maybe I imagined it. But then came another voice, my aunt's, from outside the door. She called my name softly, the way she always did, but even through the door, I could tell it wasn't her. By then my eyes were full of tears. I stood in the middle of the living room, shaking so hard my knees felt like they'd give out. The only sound was the static crackle of the TV in the corner, and then silence. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there crying quietly into the pillow, too afraid to look out the door, too afraid to do anything but wait for morning. Just then my aunt walked into the living room. I was bracing myself for her to tell me off for not being in bed yet. But when she saw the look on my face, something changed. She didn't scold me. She didn't ask questions. She just walked over, slipped her arm around my shoulders, and gently guided me toward my bedroom. She didn't say a word, but having her beside me was enough. I finally felt like I could breathe again. We walked past the front door, and that's when I heard it, my friend's voice. He was crying, begging me to open the door. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming to react. But my aunt didn't even flinch. She didn't look at the door, didn't acknowledge the voice. She just kept walking, steady and calm, as if she'd heard it all before. I clutched the pillow tighter and let her lead me into the bedroom. When I climbed into bed, she pulled the blanket over me and sat beside me, stroking my hair, and for the first time that night she spoke. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe here, in bed." A week later, my mom came for a visit. She told me that she and my dad had finalized the divorce and that I could leave with her and go back home. That weekend, I packed my things and left with her. To this day, I've never spoken about what happened in that house. I visited my aunt a handful of times over the years, but nothing like that ever happened again. Nothing even close. Of course, I've done my research since then. I know the stories, I know the legends, and now looking back, I'm certain of what I saw that night. Lurking in the tree line, its shadow stretching impossibly tall, its eyes fixed on me. It wasn't just a trick of the dark, it was a skinwalker, watching me, waiting, and sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if I had opened that door? The end.
I find it really interesting that you've written it from that perspective as well, because I think we've spoken about this before. Like, I don't know whether it's like just a Western thing, but people always want to know more, don't they? But some cultures are like really respectful of the supernatural or what they can't explain. It's not like, let's look into it, let's find out what it is and where it comes from.
Opening doors and going, hello?
Yeah.
Who is there? We don't do that.
Yeah. I liked it. Very good story. I liked it.
I feel like most people that survive these things, if they exist, probably just ignored it.
Yep, just ignore it.
I've heard a lot of people say the same thing about ghosts. Like, if you hear something, just ignore it.
Yep.
If you acknowledge it, you give it energy, that kind of thing.
And after researching Skinwalkers, I don't think I want to give them energy if they do exist.
Oh, I want to know.
I'll get into the history now. When most people hear the word Skinwalker, they imagine something similar to a werewolf or a cryptid hiding somewhere in the deserts of the American Southwest. But within Navajo culture, the concept of the Skinwalker is very different. The Navajo word Yi-nol-dlushi, sorry if I got that wrong, translates roughly to, with it, he goes on all fours. The phrase refers to a person who is believed to have the ability to transform, sometimes into an animal. According to the Navajo tradition, a skinwalker is not a monster and not a mythical creature. It's believed to be a human being who has chosen to practice a form of harmful spiritual power known as the witchery way. To understand how this belief developed, it helps to first understand the Navajo spiritual philosophy that came long before the legend itself. At the center of the Navajo belief is a concept known as hoso. The word is often translated as harmony or balance, which, after looking into the Navajo culture very briefly, is like a huge part, like having harmony, having a very balanced life, and things will work out in your favor. But the meaning is much broader than that. Hoso refers to a state where life exists in beauty, order, health, and balance with the world. Everything in Navajo life is meant to support that balance: your relationships, your community, the way you treat nature, and spirituality. So when something disrupts this balance, illness or misfortune can occur. To restore harmony, Navajo communities rely on spiritual healers known as hatali, often translated as medicine men. These healers perform complex ceremonies designed to bring a person back into balance. Some of these ceremonies last several days and involve chants, songs, and sand paintings that have been passed down through generations. The knowledge required to perform these rituals can take decades to learn. But Navajo teachings also recognize that spiritual knowledge itself is neutral. The same knowledge that can heal someone can also be used to harm them. This idea is where the concept of the witchery way begins. I have a quick question for you before we get into everything. So, do you think stories like this, stories of the Skinwalkers, were told, like in your story, they were told as warnings? Or do you think the Navajo people genuinely believe that these Skinwalkers exist? Or do you think it's like a kind of moral story that people teach, similar to things like the Selkies or things like that?
I don't think it's just a story that they tell to scare children. I'm not saying that I think they actually exist, but I do believe that those cultures believe that they exist.
The exact origin of the witchery way is difficult to identify because Navajo traditions were historically passed down through oral storytelling rather than written records. Anthropologists who studied Navajo religion in the early 20th century documented long-standing beliefs about harmful spiritual practitioners. These individuals were believed to misuse sacred knowledge in order to cause illness, manipulate events, or gain personal power. Several forms of witchcraft were described in the early ethnographic records. Some accounts mention the use of ritual curses or substances, sometimes referred to as corpse powder, which was believed to bring sickness or bad luck to another person. Over time, these harmful practices came to be grouped under what outsiders later called the witchery way. In Navajo teachings, the witchery way represents the opposite of the Hosho, so it's the complete opposite of the balance. The witchery way is associated with selfishness, revenge, and the deliberate disruption of this balance. Stories about witches and skinwalkers often serve as moral warnings about the dangers of misusing spiritual knowledge. However, historical circumstances also played a role in how these beliefs developed and spread. One of the most significant events in Navajo history occurred during the 1860s. In 1864, the United States military forced thousands of Navajo people to leave their homeland in what became known as the Long Walk. Entire families were marched hundreds of miles from Arizona to an internment camp at Bosque Redondo in eastern New Mexico. The journey itself was brutal, and many people died from starvation, disease, and exposure along the way. The conditions at Bosque Redondo were also extremely harsh. The crops failed, food was scarce, and disease spread quickly through the camps. Historians estimate that thousands of Navajo people died during this period, and a lot of bloodlines were completely wiped out. The Navajo were eventually allowed to return to their homeland in 1868 after signing a treaty with the United States government. During this period of trauma and instability, stories about witches and harmful spiritual practitioners appear to have increased. In many societies, witchcraft accusations became more common during times of crisis, when people are searching for explanations for illness, loss, or tragedy. Some Navajo oral histories suggest that individuals may have turned to darker practices during this time, in an attempt to survive or protect themselves. However, once the Navajo people returned to their homeland, those beliefs created new tensions within their own communities. By the late 19th century, fear of witchcraft had grown strong enough that violent responses began to occur. In 1878, several Navajo communities carried out executions against individuals accused of practicing harmful spiritual magic. Historians refer to this event as the Navajo Witch Purge. Reports suggest more than 40 people may have been killed, and the goal of these actions was to eliminate individuals believed to be causing harm throughout their witchcraft. While the exact details remain debated among historians, the event demonstrates how seriously those beliefs were taken within the communities. And it's also one of the rare moments where traditional belief systems intersect with recorded historical events. So some of the characteristics of skinwalkers. So within the Navajo belief, the skinwalker represents one of the most dangerous types of witches. Navajo stories describe skinwalkers as individuals who have gained the ability to transform into animals by wearing the skins of those animals. Common animals mentioned in these stories include coyotes, wolves, foxes, owls, and crows. The transformation is believed to allow the individual to travel quickly and move unnoticed through the desert at night. However, many stories claim the transformation is imperfect. Witnesses often describe animals that appear unnatural in some way. The animal may move strangely, appear largely, or behave in ways that seem almost human. Another commonly reported detail involves the eyes. Some people describe skinwalkers as having human-like eyes when they appear in animal form. Other stories claim the eyes glow red or reflect light differently from that of normal animals. And some accounts also attribute additional abilities to skinwalkers, including unusual speed, voice mimicry, and the ability to cause illness or misfortune. I know I did mention some of the stupid videos I watched before, but a big part of it is mimicry. A lot of people who believe they've seen skinwalkers, they say like it sounds like a family member, or they're basically being like lured out of the house by like a baby or someone. It's just like mimicking something they know, or like they're instinctively going outside because they feel safe. Stories about skinwalkers often describe certain behavioural tendencies that people believe might reveal the presence of a witch, and one commonly mentioned trait is secrecy. Individuals suspected of practicing the witchery way were sometimes described as living somewhat apart from their communities, avoiding close relationships and travelling at night, quite typically like a trait of all supposed witches, like living out of the communities and things like that, if you want to be a skeptic.
Yeah, I was just about to say that was like when we did the Scottish witch trials, that was a big thing where people would target almost the outcasts.
Yes.
And be very suspicious of them just because they're not part of the community as much as they should be, or maybe they're old and just don't want anyone to bother them.
And always after something bad as well, like if there's an illness or
yes, or some
something goes wrong.
cattle died.
Always after. If you're a skeptic, throw that in there. So the most frequently mentioned ability is mimicry. According to some accounts, skinwalkers are capable of imitating the voices of animals or human beings. Some stories describe hearing a familiar voice calling from outside at night, only to discover that no one is there. Other reports mention strange sounds near homes in remote areas, including tapping on windows, scratching on walls, or footsteps circling a building in the darkness. Because of these stories, some traditions advise people not to respond to the unexplained voices or noises outside after dark.
I mean, imagine you sitting in your house and you hear your mom's voice outside.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It'd be so unsettling. You'd probably be so confused and want to go and see what's happening.
Yeah, just draws you outside. So, according to traditional beliefs, becoming a skinwalker is not something that happens by accident. I found this part really interesting because it's basically like these people are people of power, like not witch doctors, but like people who like medicine people. So it's definitely like the abuse of power, and you hear about that a lot in different cultures as well. I know India's a big one for people going on the wrong side of power and leading people to madness through their practices.
Black magic.
Yeah. According to some traditional beliefs, it's not something that happens accidentally. It's believed to require a deliberate decision to abandon the values of Hosho and pursue power through the witchery way. Some stories claim that a person must commit a serious moral violation against somebody close to them in order to gain this power. Because the subject is considered culturally sensitive, many Navajo communities avoid discussing this specific detail. One thing I did read, I didn't put in here, it's and again, I don't know how true it is. It's just interesting how it's not discussed. Apparently, it's like killing a family member.
Did you ever watch Teen Wolf?
Yes, I did.
And I believe in Teen Wolf for people that have the genes to become like a werewolf.
Yeah.
They have to kill someone before it actually triggers them turning, so that they might have taken inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. I find it really interesting that the Navajo communities like actively don't talk about this. Maybe it's to stop people from being interested in it.
There's a YouTuber that I follow that he's Navajo, and he says he only shares what the elders allow him to share.
It's quite sacred to them.
And he only talks about it because I can't remember his name, but he only talks about, wants to educate people about it. But he basically said their people don't talk about it because it's almost calling to it if you mention it, kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, the temptation a little bit. These rituals supposedly allow the person to transform by wearing the skin of certain animals, which is where the term skinwalker originates. In some accounts, this transformation allows the individual to travel extremely fast along long distances, move silently through the desert, or appear unexpectedly in places where they should not be. However, within the Navajo teachings, these stories serve an important purpose. They are not meant to glorify supernatural power, but to warn about the dangers of misusing spiritual knowledge. Just as the Hosho represents harmony and balance, the witchery way represents the consequences of abandoning those values. Stories about skinwalkers remain mostly within the Navajo communities for many years. However, interest in the subject expanded significantly during the 1990s due to reports from a property in northeastern Utah that became known as Skinwalker Ranch. The ranch is located near the Uintah Basin, an area long associated with unusual folklore among local Native American tribes, particularly the Ute. In 1994, a family known as the Shermans purchased the ranch and soon began reporting a series of strange events. These events included sightings of a large wolf-like animal, unexplained lights in the sky, and unusual activity involving their livestock. One widely reported incident involved an unusually large wolf approaching a calf in Sherman family's pasture. According to the account, the ranch owner fired several shots at the animal at close range. Witnesses claimed the bullets appeared to strike the animal but had no effect. The animal eventually released the calf and walked away. The events on the ranch eventually attracted the attention of Robert Bigelow, a businessman involved in aerospace research. In 1996, Bigelow purchased the property and funded a scientific investigation through an organization called the National Institute for Discovery Science, often abbreviated as NIDS. Researchers spent several years documenting unusual activity at the ranch, including unexplained lights, animal mutilations, and sightings of strange creatures. While the investigations recorded numerous unexplained incidents, none were conclusively linked to Skinwalkers. Interest in the ranch later expanded beyond private research. In the early 2000s, the United States government funded a program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP. The program investigated unidentified aerial phenomena and other unusual events. Some of the research connected to this program reportedly included studies conducted in the Utah Basin region. And although the focus of the program was primarily on unidentified aerial phenomena rather than skinwalkers specifically, the region's unusual reputation attracted significant attention from researchers. Today, the skinwalker has become widely known through television shows, internet stories, and paranormal documentaries. However, within the Navajo culture, the topic is still very sensitive. Navajo people avoid discussing skinwalkers entirely. Speaking about harmful spiritual practices is believed to attract negative attention or energy. Because of this, much of the information circulating online may not accurately represent the original cultural beliefs. Within its original context, the skinwalker is not meant to be for entertainment. The story functions as a cultural warning about the misuse of knowledge and the importance of maintaining balance. Its roots lie in Navajo spiritual philosophy, historical trauma, and traditional teachings about the consequences of abandoning harmony. While stories of sightings continue to circulate across the deserts of the Southwest, the deeper meaning of the legend remains tied to the Navajo concept of the Hosho, a reminder that power without balance can lead to destruction, and that sometimes the most frightening legends are not about monsters at all, but about people.
People are way scarier than whatever's crawling around at night.
Yeah. I just think in those like remote parts of the world, obviously people have like ghost stories and supernatural things that happen in cities, but I just think when you're alone like that, I'm not saying not to discredit it at all, but being alone and feeling fully remote like that, and it's just your ranch under the stars. When they mentioned New Mexico, like we stayed there and it is so deathly silent. Like the landscape is so different to anywhere I've ever been before. I've never been to a part of the world like that that's like desert, and it looks really pleasant, but it's so eerie in a way. Like you just feel so alone, and you've got like big mountains all around you, like looming down on you, but everything's still so like open.
Yeah.
It's like a really weird,
very intimidating.
Yeah, really intimidating landscape.
Isolating kind of feeling. Very interesting history, Laura.
I really liked doing the history of this one.
Do you know what I think? I think a big thing that really took the whole Skinwalker thing, made it popular, and had people not make up stories but base their stories off of that, was creepypastas. Back in the 2000s, when that was a big thing, creepypastas on Reddit and everything. Like people took a lot of these old legends and made incredibly creepy stories and well-written stories, but also manipulated the narratives and the stories and the legends themselves. So I feel like a lot of those creepypastas got very popular back then.
Yeah. One thing it doesn't go into, because there's not a lot of information on this at all, but is like the reason, obviously you're not going to interview one of these possible medicine men who've gone over to the dark side, but like the motivation, I couldn't like find really anything on. Obviously power, but like it's gonna sound really harsh, but like what are you gonna do in the desert, you know? Like power in your community so people respect you, fine, but I'm like, it's quite a big step to like possibly murder someone close to you for like power, but they don't really say how. Can you manipulate people? Maybe. There wasn't much information on that.
That is the end of our episode today. But before we say goodbye, I did want to ask you, Laura, do you have any recommendations for our listeners?
Okay. If you're one of our 11 followers and you haven't watched Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix, I am like obsessed with it. I have been for years. Every story is just so interesting and so different. I think it's quite similar to what we talk about because it's not just supernatural. It's not just from one country. There's missing people.
Everywhere.
There's just so much on there. So it's really interesting. What about you? Any recommendations?
Ghost hunts.
Mm-hmm.
On Spotify, I listen to them, but I think they're on YouTube and TikTok
Yeah.
too. I find them hilarious.
They're really fun.
They are so funny, and they also write their own stories, or some of the stories they do. Hilarious. The Ghost Hunts by Hannah Bichkovsky and Susie Priest.
Okay.
They're two comedians, so it's creepy but hilarious. So highly recommend that. But that's all from us today.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have a very spooky week.
Yeah, and please leave your comments on our video if you have any recommendations for our later episodes. We'd like to hear them. Thank you for listeing.
And goodbye.
Goodbye.